of all, thank you for inviting me to discuss about the Maharashtra election verdict. This is not a new classroom for me. I come here every year to teach the MIT students. Some of the faces I can recognize. I was here only maybe a couple of months ago, but that was an occasion to give training about how to do research, how to do survey research, how to understand elections. And I think after a couple of classes which I engaged, most of the team members went to the field, collected the data. We did the analysis just before the elections, which got published in the newspaper. You would have noticed that in that report, we did mention that it's a tight election. And tight election means the two alliances are neck to neck and in a tight contest. And we also indicated, though we didn't mention the vote share and the popularity ratings of the leader, but we did mention that Mahayuti seems to have an edge. But finally, when we know the results after the election, we know that it's a big mandate for Mahayuti alliance, much bigger than what was expected by many analysts. Even in my private conversation, I think even some of the politicians, some politician means who are on the winning side, they also they didn't imagine such a big victory. So what I'm trying to do in the next 15 to 25 minutes is to focus on, if you look at the title, because we all know the results. The puzzle is that why Mahayuti registered or how Mahayuti managed to register such a massive victory. And it is a massive victory, 15% vote share difference between the two alliances. And just before 4 months ago, when the Lok Sabha elections took place, the difference in vote share was not even 1% between the two alliances. And the puzzle is what happened during the last 3 months, 4 months, that Mahayuti alliance took such a huge lead over Mahavikas Aghadi, which was not expected in many quarters. So that's a small presentation which I am going to make, and that is why I have put the title, How Mahayuti Secured a Historic Victory in Maharashtra. First, this is just a glimpse of the result, just to remind you about the results. And this is the result, that the vote share of Mahavikas Aghadi was 35%, and you look at Mahayuti, the vote share is almost touching 50%, 49%. It is a 15% gap in terms of vote share. And if you look at the number of seats, 234 versus, it was like 50 seats at the top. So again, in terms of seats also, it's a massive lead. So this is the regional performance, region-wise performance. If an alliance or a party registers such a massive victory, we don't expect, like contest in different regions. But why I am putting out this slide, if you look at the 3 regions, which accounts for roughly 100 seats, and I am referring to North Maharashtra, Marathwada, and the Konkan region. If you look at the 3 regions, accounts for roughly 97, 96 seats. Of these 96, 97 seats, Mahavikas Aghadi has won only 7. So it is a complete wipeout of Mahavikas Aghadi in the 3 regions. North Maharashtra, 35 seats, Mahavikas Aghadi won just 1. Marathwada, 46 seats, Mahavikas Aghadi just won 5. And if you look at the last column, Konkan, 15 seats, Mahavikas Aghadi Alliance just won 1 seat. So if you tally these 5, 1, 6 and 7, 7 out of 97 or 95 roughly, 35 plus 15 is 50, 96 seats. So these are the 3 regions. You can see a complete wipeout of Mahavikas Aghadi in the 3 regions. Not that in other regions they performed well, but still you can see that in other regions they were able to put up some fight. Vidarbha, out of 62 seats, they managed to win 13, polled 36% votes. Mumbai Thane, out of 60, 17 seats they managed to win, 35% vote. The vote share is not above the average vote share. The average vote share of Mahavikas Aghadi is 35%. So there is no region where they have polled more than the average vote share except Western Maharashtra, slightly 37% vote. But the big point I'm trying to make from this slide is that the complete wipeout in 96 seats of Mahavikas Aghadi and Mahayuti registered a massive victory in the 3 regions. These are the 2 data points from the survey which we conducted, not the survey which you conducted, but the Lokniti CSDS team conducted a mix of I would say mix of pre-poll, not really a pre-poll survey because there was very little time. Normally we tend to do a post-poll survey. We go and collect the information. We do a survey after polling is over, but before the counting takes place. But as you know, the polling took place on the 20th and counting was on 23rd. We were not able to do a proper post-poll, but we did a pre-poll survey very close to the date of polling. We interviewed 4,000 people spread across 40 assembly constituencies. Some of you would have a sense of what it means doing a randomized sample when you went to the field. You have to go to the interior places. So we collected the data in a very systematic manner, a representative sample. And I must tell you that our estimate for vote share was, yes, we estimated Mahayuti's victory, but we didn't expect such a big victory. We were expecting 4 to 5% lead for Mahayuti. And if that would have been the case, they would have roughly got 165, 130, 170 seats. Maybe 170, maybe 175. But 2 things were very different in Maharashtra Assembly election based on the survey which we conducted. And this is different if I compare this with the previous Maharashtra Assembly election. Also very different if I compare it with when we do our surveys in other states. So very, very different patterns. And what are these 2 patterns? First, look at the slide on the left. Late deciders. We ask a question in the survey, when did you make up your mind which party or candidate to vote for? Normally, last 2 decades, we have seen that the late deciders, who are the late deciders? Those who mention that they made up their mind which party or alliance to vote for during the last 2 days. So we have categorized that as late decider. The proportion of late deciders are roughly in the range of 18-19%, less than 20% over a period of time, not only in Maharashtra, but in most of the states wherever we do the survey. Gone are the days in the 90s when we used to do surveys, say 96, 98, 99, 2004 Lok Sabha election. At that time, the proportion of late decider used to be slightly higher, almost 25-30%. But last 1 decade, 10 to 15 years, the proportion of late decider has come down to 17-18%, always less than 20%. And why that has happened? Because party-based voting has become much stronger now. People are not looking at candidate. When I say not looking at candidate, means people are giving more importance to party. They are more loyal to party voting now compared to the past, compared to other factors. That was the trend over last 1.5 decades. But Maharashtra Assembly election presented a very different story. And this is where some of the explanation, I'm not saying that through the data or through this presentation I would be able to explain everything why Mahayuti registered a massive victory, but there are some explanations to that. And this is one explanation. Look at the proportion of last minute deciders. This is very high in numbers, 47%. Absolutely double compared to, or maybe more than double. 47% voters in Maharashtra Assembly election decided on the last 2 days which party or which candidate, whom do they want to vote for. Not that there is a massive tilt of these voters in favor of Mahayuti, but yes, if you look at the column, the data on the right hand side, your right hand side, Maharashtra has shifted on the right hand side, but I'm just asking you to look at the data on the right hand side. Early deciders. If you look at the early deciders, those who had made up their mind which party, whom to vote for much before elections were announced. So among them, the difference between Mahayuti and Mahavikas Aghadi is slightly less. 38% for Mahavikas Aghadi and 47% for Mahayuti. So it is a 9% difference. But look at late deciders, 31 and 51. It's a 20% lead. And 47% of Maharashtra voter took decision on the very last day, or maybe a day before the voting. And that, to my mind, and this is an evidence for that, that gave Mahayuti a massive lead, much bigger compared to what many of us has expected. This is a very new means a different trend, which we have not seen in any other state. We have not seen this in Maharashtra whenever we did survey in Maharashtra in the previous assembly elections. So that's one explanation for why we think Mahayuti registered a much bigger victory compared to what many of us has expected. Second important thing, as I mentioned, party-based voting is very strong in India. Average nationally, if we look at the Lok Sabha election, almost 65% voters say they vote for the party, not for the candidate. When they go to vote, party is on the top of their mind. They just vote for the party. They know the symbol. But in Maharashtra Assembly election, the trend was very different. In a smaller states, it is always candidate-based voting is much stronger compared to party-based voting. And when I am referring to smaller state, say all the states of the Northeast, Goa, to some extent Himachal, Uttarakhand, these are the states where candidate-based voting is slightly higher compared to party-based voting, because candidates are, if you look at the northeastern state, candidates are known personally to many voters. In bigger states, it is always party-based voting is much higher compared to preference for candidate. But in Maharashtra Assembly election, the current election, you look at the pattern, and this is again based on the survey estimate, and look at what proportion of voters said we voted for the candidate, not for the party. And there are several reasons for that. And look at the numbers. Candidate 50%, party 36%. It's almost a reverse, because we would not find this kind of a data in any other state. And the reasons are very simple. I think simple. First, because of the alliances between three partners, there were voters who may like to vote for party A, but they don't like the party which their party has made an alliance. Suppose a voter want to vote for BJP. He is a BJP supporter, but he doesn't like BJP having an alliance with Ajit Pawar's, just to give an example, Ajit Pawar's NCP. So he is in a dilemma whether I should vote for Ajit Pawar's candidate who is contesting in my constituency or not, or should I go for the candidate now? I'm not looking at the party now. That may be the case on the other side as well. I am happy to vote for a Congress candidate. I am a Congress supporter throughout my life, but now Congress is in alliance with Shiv Sena, and in my constituency, Shiv Sena candidate is contesting, and I don't want to vote for Shiv Sena. What do? Then I don't look at the party, I look for the better candidate. So candidate-based voting was very strong, and there were other reasons. You know that almost 150 candidates were contesting as independent, were rebels in the Maharashtra Assembly elections. So candidate-based voting seems to be very, very strong in Maharashtra this time compared to what we have seen in a previous election. And also if we look at other states, no state, never we have found such a big proportion of voters saying that they have voted for the candidate, not for the party, in bigger states. I am not referring to the small states of Northeast, but in big state, this is a very different trend in Maharashtra in 2024 compared to what we have seen in the early elections of Maharashtra. And if you look at the data again on the right hand side, look at the candidate, those who preferred, who voted keeping in mind the candidate, and look at the lead Mahayuti took over Mahavikas Aghadi. 63% of them who preferred candidate. the choice of candidate was shaped their voting preference. 63% for Mahayuti and 27% for Mahavikas Aghadi. So candidate did matter. Choice of candidate was a very strong factor why Mahayuti registered such a massive victory over Mahavikas Aghadi. And among party, the difference is just 4%. So if this was a party-based election, if people had voted more on party lines, like in the previous election, the election would have looked slightly closer compared to what it looked like, the results look like. So these are the two very important factors, in my opinion, based on evidences from the survey which we did, that explains why Mahayuti registered such a massive victory. These are some of the things which are which are being discussed very loudly. Just to mention about the Ladki Bahina scheme, a lot of discussion around this scheme, that this is the game changer. Yes, if you look at the awareness about this scheme, very high level of awareness. 88% of the people in the survey said they know about this scheme, a very high level of awareness. And if you look at all those men and women who were aware of this scheme and how they voted, yes, it made a difference for Mahayuti Alliance. Among women who were aware of this scheme, 52% voted for the Mahayuti and 50% voted for Mahayuti and 33% for Mahavikas Aghadi. So this is a factor which is talked about, but through survey, we have been able to put it in a perspective that yes, the awareness was very high, to the extent of 80%, 88% having an idea about this scheme. And all those who were aware, actually their vote was tilted in favor of Mahayuti Alliance in a big way compared to the men. Unemployment and inflation, these were the issues on the ground, but it did not shape the voting decision. All those who said inflation is a big issue in this election, 25% said inflation is an issue for us, unemployment is an issue, 21%. But if you look at all those who were concerned about these two issues, they didn't vote for Mahavikas Aghadi in a big way. Even among those who believed that inflation is a big issue, they voted for Mahayuti Alliance in a much bigger manner, 53% compared to Mahavikas Aghadi. Unemployment also, the tilt is again in favor of Mahayuti Alliance, not in favor of Mahavikas Aghadi, and the reason is very simple. A very large number of people believe that unemployment and inflation, the reason for increasing unemployment, reason for inflation is not the state government alone. It is central and the state government both. So people were not blaming entirely the state government or the central government. A divided opinion on that why there is inflation or unemployment in the state. So these issues were on the ground, but people's voting decisions were not shaped on these two issues like the way maybe Mahavikas Aghadi Alliance would have expected. Modi's role in boosting Mahayuti's performance. There is generally a belief that this was not an election of Prime Minister Modi. He didn't campaign much in these elections, but we did ask a few questions about leadership. So leadership was not I'm not saying that there was no importance of leadership in these elections. We did ask a question, which leader motivated or influenced your voting decision, and still a very 35% of voters said our voting decisions were influenced by Narendra Modi. It is not as high as one would have expected. So we do get a sense that this was not Modi's election, because if you look at the vote share estimate of the Mahayuti, it is 50%, but only 35% people believe that their votes were influenced, voting decision was influenced by Narendra Modi. But look at the data on the right hand side. Eknath Shinde. During the campaign, when we did our pre-poll survey, the data was very different. The pre-poll survey, the MIT SOG student did the pre-poll survey, and In that survey, the rating, popularity rating of, क्या नाम है इनका? Uddhav Thackeray, yes, sorry, I just forgot the name. Seems people in Maharashtra are also forgetting the name. So Uddhav Thackeray's popularity was highest. He was at the top, Fadnavis was at number 2, and Shinde was at number 3. That was the rating pre-poll survey. But number 2, but look at during the campaign, this is a man who gained popularity. And there is an evidence for that. This is a clear evidence that Eknath Shinde actually gained in terms of popular rating, and that may have also helped Mahayuti in actually mobilizing votes in favor of Mahayuti alliance. About performance of the government, positive ratings. More people were willing to say that they are happy about the performance of the state government under Eknath Shinde compared to the government which was led by the Maha Vikas Aghadi. And that was also the case with regard to the central government, performance about central government. Much bigger proportion of people were happy with the performance of central government's work compared to people who were dissatisfied. This is how all these factors resulted into a sharp polarization of voters belonging to different social groups in favor of the Mahayuti alliance. When we presented our pre-poll survey and we said the Maratha vote is tilted in favor of the Mahayuti alliance, many people started asking the question, why, how it may be possible, because Sharad Pawar is such a tall leader of Maratha. But even in the pre-poll survey, we've got a very clear sense that the vote is tilted in favor of, the Maratha vote is tilted in favor of the Mahayuti alliance. This is finally how the voters of Maharashtra belonging to different caste communities have voted. Upper caste, Mahayuti alliance 63%, Maratha 54%, Kunubi. In pre-poll alliance, in pre-poll survey, the Kunubi vote was more or less equally divided. If you remember the findings which got published in Hindu and Sakal, the Kunubi vote was equally divided. But during the campaign, the Kunubi vote shifted in a decisive manner in favor of Mahayuti alliance, 53 and 35. Other OBC, massive shift in favor of Mahayuti alliance. Dalit vote got split. And you know why? There are smaller parties which were neither part of Mahayuti or Maha Vikas Aghadi. And you can see 41% of the Dalit vote went to the other and independents. Adivasis, this is the only, not only Adivasis and Muslims, but Adivasis, Maha Vikas Aghadi had an advantage. The Muslim vote, which Maha Vikas Aghadi may have expected to be more polarized, that was not the case. Only 55% of the Muslim vote got polarized in favor of Maha Vikas Aghadi. And a very sizable number of votes got split. 23% votes went to the others. There were smaller parties, large number of smaller parties contesting elections. 8,000 candidates were contesting elections in Maharashtra. And many of them were rebels of bigger parties, and then there were a very large number of smaller parties. So the split of Muslim vote is also one of the reasons why Maha Vikas Aghadi performed so badly. In contrast, if I just want to mention how sharply was the Muslim vote polarized in favor of the JMM Congress alliance in Jharkhand, it was 90% of the Muslims voted in favor of JMM Congress alliance in Jharkhand. And the proportion of Muslim vote is more or less similar in Maharashtra and Jharkhand. Jharkhand also, Muslims are 15% of the total population, and that's the case in Maharashtra as well. So imagine if Muslim vote was sharply polarized to the tune of 90% in Maharashtra also, the results would have been slightly different. Not that Maha Vikas Aghadi would have won election, but the difference in vote share and the difference in number of seats would have been slightly different. Now, moving on to the last one or two slides, which is about the self-goal by the Maha Vikas Aghadi's candidate. There are 40 constituencies which they could have won. and but they lost because of the independents and because of the rebels. So 6 Congress candidates lost because of the independent. I'm not saying that they were all rebels, but in many cases they were the rebels of the alliance partner. So there were 6 constituencies where Congress candidate was at number 2, and one of the independent candidate, the margin of the defeat of the Congress candidate, the votes polled by an independent was much higher than that. So 6 such constituencies Congress lost due to independent. Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray 3, NCP Sharad Pawar's candidate lost 8 such constituencies, Samajwadi Party and PWP 1 and 1 each. And if you look at the MVA, Mahavikas Aghadi's losing seats because of Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi and Maharashtra Nav Nirman Sena's candidate. So Congress lost 6 constituencies because of Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi, and then if you look at the Shiv Sena Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray, 4 constituencies they lost because of Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi, and then Maharashtra Nav Nirman Sena, and same is the case with regard to the NCP. Not that Mahayuti did not lose seats of that kind, but the number of seats lost by Mahayuti because of similar reason was much less, 17 or 18 seats. In total also, if we plus minus, there is at least a loss of 25 to 30 seats of Mahavikas Aghadi because they were not able to put up a coherent alliance. If they had managed to build up a much bigger alliance, if they had managed to rope in some of their some of the independents or some of the rebels, the data could have, the number of seats won by Mahavikas Aghadi would have looked slightly different. At the moment they are at 50. If they had reached 80 or 90, automatically the tally of Mahayuti would have gone down to 180, which would have looked much more balanced compared to what it looked now, and why there is so much of discussion that what contributed to such a massive victory for Mahayuti alliance. And the last slide about, see, if you have an alliance, 3 partners on one side and the 3 parties on the other side, at least one of your partner, 2 of your partner has to perform very well in order to pull the alliance. And if you look at the situation on the one side, on the other side, the Mahavikas Aghadi, none of the alliance partner was able to perform well. There are different indications. If you look at their vote share, if you look at the number of seats won by them, that gives you a clear indication. But this data, I will read out the rows, first 2 or 3 rows, to explain why this data is important. So there were 75 constituencies where the direct contest was between Congress and BJP. And out of these 75 constituencies, Congress only won 11, and rest 64 was won by the BJP. Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray versus Shiv Sena Shinde. And look at the performance. 53 such seats. Only 15 seats won by Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray, and the vote share is 35%, and 38. So it is more than double the number of seats. So in the contest between Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray and Shiv Sena Shinde, it was a complete wipeout for Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray. NCP Sharad Pawar versus NCP Ajit Pawar, 38 such seats, only 7 versus 29. So none of the alliance partner was able to put up and contest against your, from the party which you defected, neither to any other opponents. BJP versus NCP Pawar, 39, only 2 seats won by NCP led by Sharad Pawar, and they lost all the seats to the BJP. Congress versus NCP Ajit Pawar. Even in that, we were all thinking that Ajit Pawar may be the weakest among all these 6 alliance partners. But Congress versus Ajit Pawar, out of 9, only Congress manages to win 2 seats, and rest 7 won by Ajit Pawar. So this is an indication that the 3 parties on the one side, Congress, Uddhav Thackeray, Shiv Sena, and Sharad Pawar's NCP, they were not able to put up a solid contest against any of the parties which were on the other side. So I think these are some of the explanations through which at least we have been able to figure out why Mahayuti managed to register such a massive victory compared to what many people in the state or many people in Delhi would have expected. Thank you.